Hello there, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm just taking you through a quilt I finished on March 19th, 2025. I saw a picture of this quilt online and I had to investigate and find the pattern. I will leave that information in my description. Throughout the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, I worked on this quilt. I went to a retreat in Hamilton, Missouri the week of March 17th and determined I was going to finish this quilt while I was there. I only needed to complete 25 of block B and assemble all the blocks into rows and join those all into a quilt top and add my border. Now, this isn't my pattern, so I can't give you specifics on the cutting and the pattern, but I will, like I said, leave the information. The pattern is available right now on Etsy for around $15. So the pattern consisted of a log cabin block and a half log cabin block. I started with those first because I know how to make a log cabin block. I felt pretty confident. Now, if you've watched my channel, you know I work a lot with scraps and I don't like to necessarily measure everything to make it come out perfectly. This quilt was a huge challenge for me. If I was going to repeat this quilt again or make another similar quilt, I would do some things at the beginning, like maybe pre-washing my fabrics, pressing the fabrics, maybe starching them to get nice regular blocks. But overall, my log cabins and my half log cabins did come out to the proper size. They turned out just fine. Could have done them just a little bit better, but I'm pleased with the way they turned out. Next up was block A and B. Block A and B were the exact same star block, just in two different colorways. My little 9 patches came out mostly okay. I did turn a few around, but overall the 9 patches were not a problem. I utilized lots and lots of chain piecing. I also pulled out of my stash this little ledge that I could tape down onto my machine for a better seam allowance. This part of the star block on both A and B caused me no end of problems. There was a measurement of that little white fabric. You cut a square and then you cut the square in half diagonally and then stitch that on. I cut all those squares 1/8 of an inch too small. I spent a lot of time recutting the little white squares and recutting that diagonal line to get them the right size to make this part of the block. And again, I have never made a block or a quilt like this in my whole life. Not like this. This type of piecing is so detailed and so precise. It's not my usual way to make quilts, but I enjoy learning new things and I will probably try something like this again. But you can see all these little pieces have to go together just the right way. Otherwise, it'll throw the entire block off. It took a little while and a lot of detail, but I finally got these little units to the right assembly and the right final measurement. With those little units all done, I was able to finish assembling block A. When it came time to go to the retreat in March, I knew I wanted to get this quilt finished while I was there, since I'd have plenty of time for free sewing. So I was determined to finish block B. And you can see I finished up this quilt on my featherweight with lots and lots and lots of chain piecing. Making block B was quite a bit easier because I had already done it before in that tan colorway, and this was the exact same block, just in the white background instead of tan. And I did a lot of trimming of the individual units, the 9 patches and those little star legs. That made my finished quilt blocks come out much more precisely by first measuring those individual pieces. Next, I proceeded to assemble the quilt blocks by getting my individual units into rows and then putting the rows together. Block B was my absolute favorite of all the different blocks, but these blocks were definitely challenging, and here's a case where I put one of my 9 patches on backwards, so I just had to rip all those out and put them on the right way. Luckily, it wasn't the whole batch, it was just a few. Now it was time to assemble all the pieces into a finished quilt top. These blocks are set on point, so I had to assemble rows diagonally across the quilt. Very challenging. And even though I started out using the design wall, I couldn't use that very long. I wish I could have. I wish there would have been room on the floor to do it, but there were so many people, I really couldn't lay this out on the floor. I did a lot of pinning, as you can see. Some of the blocks went together perfectly. Others, I really needed to pin precisely to get things to match up. And I just wanted to show you this new toy I bought for myself. I had so much fun playing with this pin dish. It's a very, very strong magnet, and the pins just stand straight up. It was so fun. I'll put a link to that product in my description. I thought I had discovered all these reversed 9 patches, but I did not. I had to take apart a row and fix one of these little units. I realized I was going to be able to finish this quilt, so I went out and picked up an inner border and an outer border fabric. I especially like that outer border fabric on the left. I think it really complements my block fabrics. I did get the borders attached, and about 12:45 a.m., here is what this quilt looked like. As soon as I looked through my phone at the quilt taking this video, I knew something was wrong. I have to say thank you so much to my friend Sylvia, who convinced me to fix this quilt. She even offered to do all the picking seams for me. There are 3 blocks, the log cabins, that are turned the wrong way, but we only had to remove a 5x1 section of the quilt and flip it around the opposite way to correct the mistake. Correcting that mistake took an additional 1 hour, 15 minutes. Couldn't have done it without Sylvia's support and egging me on and making sure I didn't just leave it that way. And one other thing I've never done, besides a pattern this complicated or this big, is have someone else finish a quilt for me. I left this quilt behind me in Hamilton, Missouri, where I was at the retreat, and I should have it back from them in 3 to 4 weeks. It measures about 92 by 96 inches. I used some of the leftover fabric to make some sample quilt blocks, and we are going to frame those and put them over the bed. I'm going to leave you with a few pictures from the Quilt Museum in Hamilton. This selvage edge quilt really got me inspired to not throw mine away, and this cathedral window was beautiful. The antique log cabins are just gorgeous, and very inspiring were these tiny, tiny doll bed quilts. The pieces were so small, I just couldn't believe it. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back again soon for another quilting adventure.